Hello and welcome back on our final All Access Pass. I'm your host, Jason, and today we are blessed to have with us one of the finest, one of the best, one of the true voices of his era. Please welcome the one and only Lou Christie. Thanks for being with us, Lou. You've had a busy day today.
It's still going on, too.
I know. Yeah, it's not over. How was the show today? How was the show from your end?
Fantastic. Today, I was just delighted. The sound was wonderful. The guys were really on target playing. You know, the Crayons were singing their hearts out. It was wonderful. The audience was unbelievable. Thank you.
How many of you saw that today?
Out there, saw the show today. It was great.
You said you've done Malt Shop before. This is not your first Malt Shop.
Yes, I've done a few of these, but I think that was about 3 years ago. That was the last one I did of the Malt Shop.
And how did you feel this time when they gave you the call and said, "We want you back"?
I'll tell you, this was much more pleasant than the last one. I don't know if the water was calmer or whatever it was, but it was really nice. And you're such a host.
Oh, you're very generous.
And you and that beautiful wife of yours. Everyone's talking about these two, he and his wife.
It's funny because every 10 feet someone goes, we enjoyed you this cruise. And your wife, it's like, I can't agree more. I married up. I married up in life.
Well, I think you did a good job.
Yes, thank you, sir. I'd love to ask you a couple of questions about the start. If I understand correctly, you were a choir boy coming up in the beginning.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah, I'm taking you back, Lou. I'm taking you back, buddy.
Yeah, well, you know, there was music in our house since I was born. I mean, I really thought that everyone could sing. I didn't think a voice was that different because my father sang, my mother sang, all the kids and my brothers and sisters sang. There was just music in the house. You know, I don't know if it was just being one of those Italian families where everyone sang. You know, it's in the blood. But I sang at every chance I could, and that was whether it was in a choir or, you know, in junior high school. I mean, I was just picked out of moments, whether it was a music teacher in school or something, and I don't know, they just either felt the vibration that I sang naturally, and they picked me out of the crowd all the time, and I ended up being student conductor here and getting a scholarship if I wanted to. I got to watch about that settle because it wasn't at West Point, so I got to watch. But and I won a few things, and I was student conductor, and I conducted the junior high choir at Moon Township is where I went to school. Yeah. And I sang every solo, you know, that they could. But I really didn't think it was that different, because I just thought everyone could sing.
Sure.
I was around people that sang. I was born on a farm, like, outside of Pittsburgh, so we lived on 109 acres, so a lot of crabapple trees, believe me, it wasn't that beautiful, you know. Like I say, everyone sang in the family, you know.
And because everyone sang naturally, then you started to sing as well, I'm assuming.
Well, no one sang professionally.
Oh.
No. I mean, my mother used to buy, she's the first one who turned me on to Peggy Lee. You know, she had these big 78 records, and Peggy Lee had songs like Mañana and things like that. And then she was into Bing Crosby and Perry Como and that. But music was always in the house, you know, and it was just a natural thing. And then I found out, I heard rumors that my mother sang with big bands. Well, when she passed away, it was like a whole new, they opened the book and it was like, oh yes, she sang with big bands like Peggy Lee.
Wow.
You know.
And you didn't know that?
I wasn't aware of how much she sang, and she had a great voice. She just had great style in her singing, and her speaking voice was just wonderful. She was like, you know, I used to listen to her just answer the phone all the time because I thought, listen to her voice. It was just charming. It really was. And she sang all the time. She had, like my dad, they both had perfect pitch. And they could just sing, and away we did. The whole family was singing.
So then it's safe and easy to say that your parents were really your first true influences.
I think so. Like I say, I wasn't conscious necessarily thinking about it all the time. I just thought everyone could sing.
Well, it's what you knew. It was what's going on.
It's what I heard.
Fair enough. So when you're singing in the choir and you're conducting and whatnot, and you're classical to a certain extent, right? You were kind of pushed in that direction.
Yeah, exactly. anytime I would work with someone who really knew about music.
Sure.
When I was in choir, I had the lowest bass voice in the choir, and I could also vocalize with the sopranos, the altos, the tenors, because I had like 4-octave range. I had like close to 4 octaves. But I was the lowest bass that they had, and I enjoyed that. But I also wanted, records became very popular. And then when it was Elvis, and then I saw Gene Vincent, and American Bandstand came on, Frankie Avalon, and I were teenage idols, and I thought, I mean, this is what I want to do. But I was offered to scholarships and things like that to use my voice and sing classical. And I do love classical stuff, and I like choral music. But I think American Bandstand and things like that sort of plucked my heart a little more, and I thought, I want to go meet Annette Funicello, and that's what I did. And I was on my way to Hollywood.
And there you were.
Yes.
You worked with Twyla Herbert, correct? If I'm not
Yes.
mistaken? And that was kind of your transition.
Well, it was because I always had like a little group, an a cappella group, like I think 3 of us were from the choir, in school, that type of a thing at junior high. And I was always dragging my one sister in. Come on, Amy, you got to sing the other part. So
She sang with you.
She sang with me, but she didn't want to. But I was trying to make her into
Older
another
or younger
Annette
sister?
Funicello. Older.
Older sister.
She was
Wow.
18 months older than me, and she was just in a different space. I was, I wanted to be a singer, and that was it. But she always was there to help me out, and she recorded the very first records with me, like The Gypsy Cried, and Two Faces of I, and Amy sang background with Twyla's daughter, and it was a very homespun, grown thing. That when we wrote the first song that I wrote was The Gypsy Cried, and I wrote it with Twyla, and I wrote it in about 15 minutes. And then Amy sang background, and her daughter sang background, and it just one thing grew after another. I went into the studio and recorded the record, and that was it. We started going.
I think it's fascinating. We talk about writing a lot. I had Mr. Sadaka earlier in the cruise on the show.
He was one of the best.
Right, and whenever someone talks about writing a song, it's one way or the other. It's either, we wrote it in like 20 minutes over a cup of coffee, or it took us 6 years and we wrote it line by line. Take us through a little bit of writing as a writer.
It's exactly what you said. You never know when it just comes out of you hear a melody and you end up singing it, and all of a sudden, I walk around sometimes. I get my best melodies if I'm walking around New York City, and that's why I used to call in on the phone and sing it, in my answering machine, and sing the line. When I get back to the house, I would pick it up again. But that happens so much. I mean, but then there are times when you have to really work at it. And I think that's really the work. But after we wrote like Lightning Strikes, you're always, or the first million-selling record, or the first 2. The first record, like I said, The Gypsy Cried, was a million-seller. Then I thought, we got to come up with another one, because I was always thinking, what am I going to do now? I got to do the next one, and that was Two Faces of I, which was another million-seller. So I was always thinking ahead. What's my next record? We got to write this thing, and I really liked the idea that it was coming from Twyla and myself, because I didn't want to make records like anyone else.
Sure.
I was never a copycat. I didn't like the idea of trying to do something like someone else, The success was one thing. I thought I'd love to be successful and have hit records, but I didn't want to sound like anyone. I didn't want to copy someone. That's why I never had a record that sort of like everyone tried to be the Beatles for a while, and everyone tried to do this for a while. Nah, I wanted to be original. I thought I was hearing something else, and every time I would go in and be original, it would come out to be a very successful record. And but there was always some little twist and turn when people tried to knock you off that track, because you always think someone knows more than I do. There were so many people in the business that I worked with that were so knowledgeable.
Sure.
They had so much success.
And you're you're a kid at this time, relatively
16,
speaking. Yeah,
15, 16, 17, and I was doing this, I don't know what I was hearing. I was hearing little gypsies singing in my head or something, but I did it.
Do not go away. We're going to be right back with more of the fabulous Lou Christie. Hey, thanks for tuning back in. Welcome back. Here we are with the one and only Mr. Lou Christie. Now, Lou, we were talking a little bit about writing before the break there. Do you find it easier to write lyrics and then try to match music, or do you find it easier to hear the melody, hear the music, and then try to write the lyrics for the? You know what I'm saying? Which process?
Of course, I know what
yeah,
you're saying.
Of course, you know.
It again, you don't know, because if the melody comes first, sometimes the melody starts the words and says, "This says that," you know, and all of a sudden, then you back into the song, because that's what it's telling you. This melody is telling you something. Yeah, I prefer that. I want to be inspired musically, that pulls me in, and then I sort of like back into it lyrically, sort of trying to figure. But then it works the other way too. I could say the other thing too. You know, it's very tricky. It's mercurial. It comes and goes, and you don't know.
Fair enough.
Where it's coming and when it's going. You know, it's like. And but it's a fascinating process. I mean, there really is, and then you have to learn about writing. After you get so far, then you really have to figure out how to get the best out of that melody.
Sure.
You know.
I understand.
And that's one of those things that Neil Sedaka can do. He's very good like that. You know.
He didn't go too deep into the writing process, but he discussed something very similar.
Mm-hmm.
He just said, you know, sometimes you hear it, sometimes you write it and then hear it, sometimes you hear it and then write it. But,
yeah.
So your career is starting to take off, you're doing some stuff, and then you get drafted.
I did. And, you know, I remember I joined the reserve, so I only went in for 6 months, you know. It was when you could do that, you know. But there was talk about, at that point, Vietnam, and I didn't know what the hell Vietnam was about, or who was Vietnam. You know, but I went in for 6 months, and as a matter of fact, I was on tour with Dick Clark and the Caravan of Stars.
Caravan of Stars, yeah.
And the last day of the tour, I had to go to Fort Knox and shave my head. And so I did. That was my first, you know, I had to leave the tour because that was the last night of the tour. And I was on tour at that time with Diana Ross.
What was the tour
Supremes.
like? Yeah.
Oh, it was fantastic. It was Diana Ross and the Supremes when they were just the Supremes. Starting out, this was their first, you know. And I was so proud because I thought, this girl is going to be unbelievable. She is going to be such a big star. And she was magical. She really was. I felt it from the beginning. And she and I were sort of bus buddies, you know, on the tour for 30-some nights on that road. But I was with the Supremes, Gene Pitney, Brian Hyland, Johnny Tillotson, the Crystals, Ruby and the Romantics. Yeah, I mean, all the tours were like that with Dick Clark because they were the top people in America, you know, that had in the top records. And it was just always so exciting for me because this is what I saw as a kid. I thought, oh, that's what I got to do, you know.
And this is around 62,
63. 64.
So then you come back out and you hit 23 years old and lightning strikes, literally.
Yeah, yes, it did. Yes, I came out of the reserves and then I moved out. I recorded the record in New York City, moved out to Hollywood, and started being managed by Frankie Avalon's manager and Fabian's. So the three of us were all managed by Bob Marcucci. And that was just such an exciting time because I was then in sort of the same presence as Frankie, who I admired when I was younger, a couple of years before that, you know, and Fabian too.
Well, you were trying to meet Annette the whole time.
Well, of course, that was the whole thing. But it was a very exciting time to live in Hollywood at that point because I was raised with Hollywood in mind, with, you know, those beautiful stars, whether it was Natalie Wood or, you know, Hollywood and this wonderful heyday, you know, of where they had studios and they had stars, you know, it was really nice.
So you're coming as a farm kid out of Pennsylvania. How do you pen a song that has its lyrics so suggestive that it gets banned from the radio, Mr. Christie?
Wow.
How does that happen?
Well, you know, when we wrote these songs, I said, well, this is the way we're talking today. I mean, this is what we say in school when we're in the halls, or someone's saying, oh, well, we were making out, or something like that, or, you know, so and so. But I was very observant as a child, and my whole life I was always a voyeur. I was always watching and seeing people and taking in my own vision of what I was seeing, and that's what I wrote about. I mean, it would be a little bit of my life, a little bit of someone else's life, or whatever it was. But I would conjure up like a little movie in my head. And Lightning Strikes was one of those wonderful ideas of saying that and it's not very flattering for men if you hear the lyrics to it. You know, people are realizing it now because it's a guy who's going to cheat on this girl. You know, when I see lips begging to be kissed, I can't stop. Bye, lightning striking again, or, But it was such so controversy. But the follow up was the one that was banned.
Oh.
So Lightning Strikes really, went to number one, and it went to number one on my birthday.
23, right?
Yes, I was. It's February 19th. It went number one all across America on my birthday, and that's the person that wrote the song and produced it. I mean,
Happy
sang
birthday.
it. It was so bizarre to have that happen.
That's got to be a cool moment, though.
Oh, it was absolutely incredible. And there I was, living in Hollywood, in a Frank Lloyd Wright house.
As you do.
Oh, it was really very nice. It was just, it was really quite an exceptional year that year.
So let's jump forward a year or two. What's going on nowadays?
Nowadays, well, I'm on a ship.
Yeah, I heard that. I heard that.
Time Life. Wonderful. It was wonderful.
Yeah.
I had a good time. Anyhow, I'm probably enjoying my career more today than I have in my whole rest of the year. I think I've obviously matured, know myself enough. I'm not searching for something that, is not there. I'm very comfortable in my skin.
Sure.
And I love to see everyone turn 17 when I walk out on that stage, and really it's, you don't know. You don't know the impact you have on people until you get older. And now I'm learning of, geez, oh man, these records are really meant something. Just like they did to me when I listened to the McGuire sisters back in the 50s, or Les Paul and Mary Ford, or the Chordettes, or whatever it was, or Peggy Lee. When I got to do work with Peggy Lee, I was like knocked out. Oh my God, I'm with Peggy Lee. And she liked young Italian guys. So what can I tell you?
Hey. Did she remember working with your mom?
No, she didn't work with my mother.
Oh.
My mother sang her stuff all the
Oh,
time.
sang her stuff.
And yes,
Got it.
and she had all these big 78 records of Peggy Lee. So
Ah.
my mother was the one that turned me on to Peggy Lee.
Understood. Out of all the people you performed with, who do you look back on and you go, wow, that time was magical? Because you performed with a lot of folks.
Yes, everybody. There were so many people. I remember the first time I did a show with Jackie Wilson. That was like, I was so green, and I mean, I didn't know what I was doing on the stage at all. But when I traveled, when I felt someone sending out something else, and I knew they were going to be a star, or they were starting out, just like Diana Ross. I knew this girl was going to be a monster star, And this is before Baby Love came out. Mm-hmm. But just to see that happen and visualize it, and you think, damn, I was right,
Sure.
There were so many people there's so many moments that I can think of people like the Who, if you go into the rock period, but then there's Perry Como or something, or some, or everyone in rock and roll, whether it was Bill Haley, Gene Pitney, Del Shannon, Brian Hyland.
Is there anybody that you wish you could have or would have performed with that you didn't get the chance to?
I don't know. No, I don't have any of that sort of bucket thing going. No, I don't know. I mean, just I'm always like to see talent. I always, even when I'm on shows, and if there's 5 acts on the show or big rock and roll shows, I always wait in the wings and I watch them all the time. It's just, it puts me back to where I was when I said, I want to do that, And I loved watching people on stage, you learn from that.
Absolutely.
And you see why it works, and, I love it. and part of me is a director in my mind, you know, and part of me is really a writer. I could, you know, I'm starting to write other things, stories, and you know, who knows, that book may get out. I don't know.
It
One of
may
these days.
make its way out one of these days.
Yeah.
On that cliffhanger, do not turn away. We'll be back momentarily with one more segment with the fabulous Lou Christie. Welcome back. Here we are once again with the one, the only, Lou Christie. He's a big star.
That's it,
Come on.
That's it.
You said you've watched the show so far at least once this week.
Yeah, I did.
So you know I like to break down the fourth wall. I like to allow the audience
That
into our
wall.
that
All right,
wall.
that wall.
I like to allow the audience into our interviews here. So
Absolutely.
we have submitted, or they have submitted some questions that we have, and I'd like to, with your permission, allow them to ask a few questions. So Daryl from New Jersey, he says, how did you come to collaborate in writing songs with your writing partners who recently passed away, and what was her name, if you want to expand on that a little bit?
Well, her name was Twyla.
Twyla. Mm-hmm.
Twyla. And she was a interesting, oh, wow.
How did that come to be? How did, I mean, we discussed
I
you
went
and
to an
Twyla, but-
audition. I saw this little thing in the paper that said, Buzz Recording Company is coming to like audition and look for stars. You know, people who were saying, I thought, oh my God, this is it. This is my chance. So I got my little group together. You know, I had 2 girls and 2 guys in the group. You know, it was me, Bill, Judy, and Amy, and my, you know. So I only had a little pitch pipe. You know, we didn't sing with like guitars and things like that. It was just little, and we would get our starting note just like you did in a choir.
Sure.
You know. And when I wrote these little ditzy songs all by myself, you know, teardrops on my pillow tonight, you know that. And I found out that the audition was in the basement of our church, and I thought, this is so bizarre. This man's coming from New York City, and he's gonna, you know. And I thought, oh, all right, whatever. And so I went to the audition to see if I could win this thing, and I saw in the back of the auditorium, or the cellar, you know, that we were sort of in the church, the basement, that there was this red-headed woman, and she looked sort of like Susan Hayward and Marilyn Monroe together, and she had long red hair, and she had an emerald dress on and big gypsy gold earrings. And I thought, oh my God, that must be the woman from New York City, you know, because I thought, this country bumpkin, I mean, you know.
Sure,
like,
yeah, they all look like that.
Yeah, right. And so, and she was like, I don't know, I just couldn't take my eyes off her. Anyhow, they loved us when we think, and then I met her after, and she said, no, I live up on the hill, you know. She says, I write songs, and I have a group, and she said, why don't you come up sometime, and da-da-da. Well, I went up, and that was it. We were together for 20-some years, 30 years writing songs together.
Prolific years, fantastic.
And it was just weird. I was 15 years old, and my father we had a family pizza place, and down in the same little town. And I was working in the pizza place, and I was making the dough and running up to her house and writing sitting at the piano and writing. So she was writing, I was writing, and we got together. And the first song we ever wrote was "The Gypsy Cried," and it went to be a million seller. I mean, it was like, when
it works, it works.
It worked, and we wrote incredible and laughed and giggled, and she opened up my mind to things in life. She just saw the world. Of course, she was a lot older than me. She was almost, she was at that point 35 years old. I was 15 or something. So it was like the way she saw the world was just a different way, a much more mature way. And we just got together and started writing, and that was it. We just wrote
And
these
here
songs.
you are.
And here I am.
And here you are.
Floating around on the boat.
On a cruise ship.
Cruise ship.
Judy would like to know, you mentioned your dad worked in the steel mill.
He did.
I have relatives that worked at Edgewater Mill in Oakmont. Was your dad working at that plant?
No.
No.
He worked in the Beaver Valley. He worked at A.M. Byers, these words, and Jones and Laughlin, J&L. I found it treacherous that he had to work that way. I mean, he raised 4 girls, 2 boys in the family, and worked just like a dog, an animal or something. It was so hard, the steel mills, if you know what they were like, you know. he was quite something, you know. It was really something to see him do that every day.
But then you said there was a pizzeria.
Well, we had a pizzeria when they started closing the steel mills. One of the steel mills was closed, and that's where he worked for years. And then we opened up a pizza place, and then my mother and father, after 13 years, had 4 children in a row. Amy was 18 months older than me. Then it was myself. Then after 13 years, they had 4 little kids again. So I felt like I was carrying a kid on my hip all the time, or help my mother and father do it. And I worked in the pizza house at that time, and then I met Twyla, and then we started writing songs. I said, I'm not going into the steel mill. I'm getting out of here, because I saw how hard it was. It was really hard.
It was either that or nannying for you, so you had to get out of there.
I was getting out of there.
As she says, she continues to end here, my friend Sue is the one who went to school with you, and her mom was the secretary to the principal. And she knows all your dirty secrets in school.
Nothing. She knows nothing. Yeah, I remember. Well, I don't know what.
No, that was just a statement. I was just
okay.
letting you know that she's got things
here?
on you.
Is she here?
Right here.
Right in the front.
No, you're.
You signed my shirt. And
Oh yes, okay.
I'm supposed to go home and ask if she remembered Olivia.
Oh, that's right,
Yeah,
Olivia
she's-
Adair.
Mhm.
She was beautiful. She was our drum major at Beautiful Girl. She still is beautiful. You can see her on Facebook. I don't know what her last. She's married now. But Olivia's the. The school was such a big thing for, our community. My sister was head cheerleader for 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th grade. She was class president 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th grade.
What's it like to be a second-class child at that point?
I thought, this has got to stop, And she was May Queen, and she was just everything in school. A lovely person. That's the one I was gonna, she sang the records with me, and so I said, I don't think I'm gonna do what she's doing, because she was just everything in school, and all her friends, her boyfriend was the quarterback, and she was the head.
Shocker.
It was Natalie Wood and Warren Beatty,
It was
Splendor in the Grass.
It was real life TV written.
Yeah.
Terry, all the way from Canada, wants to know: are there any of today's artists that you listen to?
Oh God, that's a hard. I don't sit around and listen to anyone anymore. No. I hear, how, what do you turn on to hear? A cloud or something? I don't know. If it's good enough, I'll hear it. I'll hear something that sort of comes across whether I'm walking in a store or something. But I don't sit around and say, there's incredible voices out there. There are some people that have some incredible voices. But I can't follow it. It's too askew and scattered careers today,
Sure.
Years ago, we all knew who had the top 10 records at the time. If the Supremes were coming out with a new record, or the Temptations, or, the Four Tops, Martha and the Vandellas, whatever it was. Or like Frankie Avalon or Bobby. I did connect a face with them. We all connected a face with these people. But today, I don't know who they are or what they are or where they're coming from, and most of them aren't really singing, because they're pre-recorded a lot of stuff, and
There's not a lot of
it's just
stability.
strange. I'm, and then I don't like necessarily what they're singing about. There's no romance in music at all. I came from that period where it was so romantic, it was like, you fantasize about a lot of things, and it was nice. It was just a different period of life, I'm not too interested in what's happening out
Understandable. Her follow-up to that is, did you ever figure out how to use your shower?
Oh, that damn thing! I can't believe. I'm dyslexic, so I have to concentrate about being dyslexic, because I see when I read words, and I force myself to read so I can calm myself and read a book, because I could read a whole book and not tell you nothing that I read in that thing if I'm in that certain mental state. So I'm left-handed on top of it, so I'm always approaching a door. Do I push? Do I pull it? And I just pick this one all the time. It's like, do I push it and then I pull it? It's like, and then do the same thing.
Always go the wrong way
I do the
first.
same thing with things like hot water and cold water. It's like, which way are you supposed to turn this damn thing? And that thing in that bathroom is crazy because you turn it backwards and to turn it on or something, and then you turn it forward to turn. I said, what the heck's going on?
He hasn't showered since he got here, folks. Don't let it. That's why we created some distance between us and the audience here.
But I'm bummed. I'll get you for that.
I know you will, sir. I know you will. Susie wants to know, how did the Crayons get their name?
I made it up. I love the idea of crayons, because when you were young, you could color any, all these wonderful colors, and I always pictured when I think about a voice, I think a voice has a color. I
Sure.
visualize, and I've always thought of myself, I have like a box of crayons in my throat because I can change the tone. I can do in this octave, that octave. I could be hard and piercing, or I can be real lilting and light, and or use my low voice. So I have almost like a box of crayons
That's a
that
great
I
analogy.
think in my. But that's the way
That's a
I
great
always
analogy.
thought about it, And I thought, oh, these two girls are just two great crayons, they're really pretty colors, and so one's pink and one's sort of orange,
I love that you have the color picked out, too. Last question, then we'll let you off the hot seat here. Ed, also from Pittsburgh, wants to know, are you still writing and recording new music, sir?
Oh, Ed would ask that.
Ed would
question,
ask
wouldn't
that.
he?
Sneaky Ed.
Well,
That
I
Ed.
do. I am. As a matter of fact, I'm going back into New York tomorrow, and then I'm going to head out to Pittsburgh, my hometown, because I have some friends there, and I'm going to be recording a couple things again. It's very hard to figure out what to do with them now. Because we don't have the radio stations, we don't
Sure.
have the top 10, top 20, and top 40 radio.
You barely even have records or CDs anymore.
Oh,
It's all digital.
Yeah, there's no records. I mean,
Yeah.
there's no record shop. But and a lot of them now are not even pressing up, CDs.
That's what I'm saying. It's all
Yeah.
digital.
So, but I just have that bug that I just can't let go of it. I've thought all my life positive that I would do something with it, and I can't drop it. I will try it, keep trying it, and something may happen, but I'm enjoying it. I'm really enjoying it. I'm working with people that I really enjoy, and they're from Pittsburgh, so we have many similar things to do and to talk about and sing about. So I'm gonna just keep going. As maybe I'll somehow come up with a song from a movie or something again.
I'm sure I speak not only for myself, but for everyone here in our studio audience and everyone watching when I say, please don't stop.
Oh.
I think we love you, we adore you, and we want to hear you keep doing the music. Thank you so much for joining us here in the crowd, and thanks for tuning in once again. Big round of applause for the one, the only, the fabulous Mr. Lou Christie. Have a great travel, folks. We'll see you again soon.
Thank you.